Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara is busy, and this is the Real Steel Slim. The Real Slim. And it is exactly that. And this thing makes sense in so many ways. And I'm going to get right into it. So this thing is a real steel knife, VG10 steel. It has a steel, very thin frame lock. Extremely thin. And, you know, it's kind of a specific task knife. It's definitely going to be for a person that needs something extremely slim, like at a desk, maybe a letter opener, maybe like a glorified letter opener, or one to carry around in a pocket, some to for opening packages, you know, maybe breaking down a couple things. But the blade is extremely thin, very thin all around. I can actually even bend it. It's so thin, so it's not trying to be an EDC knife at all. Could you use it as an EDC? Absolutely. But if you look at this, it makes sense, okay? And, you know, I keep saying the phrase, make it make sense. I keep asking for knife makers, make it make sense. And in this case, this does make sense. So it's not trying to be a Microtech SOCOM Elite. If you look at something like this, this thing can fit literally inside the Microtech SOCOM Elite. It's as thick as the whole blade. But the Microtech is a hard use knife. This is trying to be a hard use knife. You can see by the gigantic stop pin, you know, as the thumb studs. It also has another big stop pin on the inside of here. It's got a sandwich construction. Even though it's using little screws, the screws are holding together the frame that's pressed together. So it's not like the screws are just running all the way through. I mean, they are running all the way through, but I mean, it's not like that's the only thing holding it together. It's the sandwich construction that does it. And this thing has a very thick blade stock for that reason. The liner is as thick as a frame on a lot of, it's actually thicker than, you know, this frame lock. So it makes sense for what it's trying to be. This isn't trying to be that. This is trying to be something extremely thin, something you can put maybe on your desk, in your pen holder for when you need to open up a package, or, you know, cut something opening things. It's definitely basically a glorified letter opener. And that's cool. You know, because I could see a lot of people needing something like this, whether it's to carry on them or at their desk. You can reverse flick it. Now, it is obviously very slim, so you kind of want to be good at it. But if you can handle how thin it is and get your finger in that hole and keep this finger out of the way, you can reverse flick it. It does have a nice clicky detent. A relatively strong detent for how thin the frame is, meaning where the detent ball is, because this is very thin. And it is very solid for, I mean, aside from bending, you know, because it's so thin, but it's pretty solid. You can easily get to that liner and push it forward. It's not going to be drop shutty whatsoever. It definitely has, you know, a good amount of tension in the pivot, but it's still very smooth. I can slow roll it open with my thumb. A lot of people would probably pinch it open and then roll it, but you can just one thumb it if you do it right. And then thumb flick, I'm not good at it, but I can reverse flick it. So there you go. Now, like I said, it's not drop shutty at all, but you do have a consistent tension all the way down to the close. Nice and centered. And then a lot of people would probably just open it up two hands, you know, just swing it open. You see the stop pin back there. Nice strong lockup for, you know, for what it's worth. The handle is, you know, it's got a real pop-in color. Nice red pivot collar, and then it also has the clip, which works great. This thing's so slim you could pretty much hide it anywhere. Now, in the pocket, man, it works really good. It's going to carry really good, but obviously you can keep it anywhere. But if you are going to carry it in the pocket, yeah, it's very comfortable in the pocket. You don't even know you have a knife on you. And the clip works just fine. It does hang out of the pocket just a little bit, just enough for you to grab it and pull it out. A lot of tension on the pocket clip, which is cool because it has a great amount of tension to where it's not going to slide around and fumble around in your pocket, which you don't want because, it is so small and thin. You don't need things getting trapped in there or it, knocking against stuff. It'll stay nice and tight in your pocket and not move around, which is really good. And you won't even realize it's there until you need it. And, for cutting. Now, being such a thin blade, it cuts very well. This thing can be dull and it will cut very well. And that's kind of the point. The point isn't for it to be strong and durable. The point is for it to cut. So opening things up, maybe, cutting the sides off of boxes or, whatever you need, like at a desk or for your daily task of opening things and, possibly, breaking down things here and there. It would work great as a mailing knife. When you go to the post office and you mail lots of packages, it's nice to have a blade there to cut the plastic to fit in the box, to make sure everything's nice and fit, to cut tape off of things, and just basically a light duty knife there to help you get your packages right and create the right amount of tension inside the boxes with the stuffing and the plastics, and to cut strings, to cut this, to cut that. It'd be perfect for a mailing knife, if you send lots of packages out, through the post office or from your home. It's going to work for that without even, keeping a razor edge on it. Could you do that? Yeah, absolutely. It's VG10. VG10 takes a heck of an edge. So you can probably take care of it for a long time just stropping and honing it. Meaning, like maybe a ceramic rod or something. If you just have a ceramic rod, 2-3 passes on a ceramic rod will keep this thing going for quite some time. Or possibly just a strop. If you have just one of these little tools right here, one of these little work sharp field sharpeners, you can easily do a couple passes on this ceramic rod and keep this thing going for quite some time, and then give it a little strop. Because since it's not like a really thick blade stock, you don't have to have a really razor sharp edge on it. And you can see how small the edge bevel is on this. It's very, very tiny because it's so thin. Let's talk about how thin it is. Now, I measured this behind the edge, which, literally directly behind the edge at like 7,000. So it's, and that's why, like I said, I can bend it, but that's going to pass through materials very, very, very easily. Utility cuts, it's going to be able to do utility cuts pretty good, even though it is a rounded nose. Like, this isn't very sharp. It's not extremely pokey. It is more rounded, but it's so thin, it's not going to have any issues making little utility cuts. And you're going to just hold it however, feels comfortable, because you're not going to be putting a lot of pressure into this because it's so thin, you just can't. It doesn't give you the ability to do that. But being a thin blade stock, you don't need the best ergos in this case. Now, for certain EDC knives that are very thin behind the edge and very thin blade stock, yeah, you might want great ergos because that's that type of knife. This isn't. So being able to use that tip, it's going to work just fine for opening things up, slicing, the plastic packages and possibly, whatever you really need to do that's extremely light duty. It's obviously an extremely light duty EDC, and it fits the bill. It works for that. It works just fine for that. Now, the drawback is going to be that this handle is so thin, you're not going to get a lot of leverage from it. There's just, it's hard when they're this thin. It wants to bend, it wants to twist, and it's not easy to stop it. Like when I talk about leverage, let's bring back the Microtech SOCOM Elite. When I talk about leverage and being able to get a squeeze on a knife, being able to have something thick in the hand, you can get more muscles from your arm and then from your hand into that pressure. Now, with something like this, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to hold it in the most comfortable way and just kind of lock it in, because you're not going to be able to apply the pressure you want. And it's so thin, it's going to hurt. So just holding it in the places, whatever's comfortable for you to do that cut, for you to apply the amount of pressure to put this very thin blade through the materials is going to work. And it's not going to take much effort because it's so thin, which, is awesome. So what are the bad things? Well, there's really not a lot of bad here, because anything I would complain on, like let's say on an EDC knife, I can't complain about on this because it's not trying to be that. So, I could nitpick and say, that the screw here is bigger. The screw here is a little bit bigger than the other one. Is that big of a deal? No. I could complain and say it's too thin in the hand, but that's what it's supposed to be. The jimping works great. It is sharp right here when you're pinching it, because if you look, it's like a little saw blade because it has jimping on it. So, but it's not that big of a deal because that's what it's supposed to be. So I'm not going to complain about anything on this knife. Really, in all reality, it's perfect for its task, for what it's trying to be. So yeah, no complaints on the build construction. The screws are little screws that, they're T6s, which is fine because this is, it's so small and thin. It makes sense. They could, they made it make sense, I guess. Even the stop pin, is a perfect size for this lockup, this light of a blade. The action's very smooth. It seems like it'd be very useful. Now, for me, I personally wouldn't carry and use it, but I could totally see putting it in a backpack or something and having it, or at my desk or something, for opening stuff up. And, maybe in your backpack, you might need it to pull out. Maybe, and it's VG10, so VG10 is going to be very stainless. I mean, you could totally use this in the kitchen. That would be awesome. Now, it is stainless steel, so you got to be careful for rust on that, but it is coated too, I'm not sure what kind of coating this is. It's some type of paint that's baked on, but I could totally see somebody using this in the office, to cut their sandwich, maybe butter something up. I don't know, something, because it's, you could do that. I mean, you can do whatever you want with your own tools, but it would totally work for that. And I don't see this being very threatening to anybody in an office setting, cutting your apple up, cutting something up at your desk that you eat for a snack. You totally could. You just want to keep the blade clean, don't mix the other things you cut with the food you cut. You may even want to just primarily use it for that. But yeah, it's pretty dang awesome that they made a knife like this that's going to work out for people that aren't looking for a certain, a snappy knife or a hard use knife or an EDC knife. They just need a one task knife, a knife that's going to cut, a knife to conceal, or not conceal, but like put someplace that's going to stay out of the way. It's going to stay out of the way. It's not going to get in the way. Now, one other little complaint, if I was really going to complain, there is a lot of logos on this, but the blade is very sterile, so that's cool. I mean, besides the steel marking, and it has kind of a platypus like look going. I kind of think that's cool, this big swoop right there on the nose, but it winds up working out for you to rest your thumb right there. But my thumb feels best right there in this jimping. The jimping actually works really good. So, yeah, all in all, this thing, it's pretty cool, and I understand it, and it makes sense. Benjamin, thank you for letting me check this out and a bunch of other knives. We appreciate your support, brother. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.